I want to suggest to you 7 practices that will lead to greater mental toughness. I think that mental toughness is so important nowadays. When we look at our life and the difficulties that we go through, to have the ability to maintain focus in the midst of difficulty, to continue to press forward even when there are setbacks, to stay calm and again to press forward and to move on and accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. This quality of being mentally tough is so key, I think, especially in the second part of our life. We can face any number of challenges in our life, and we need to develop that sense of toughness when we face difficulties in relationships, when there are burdening responsibilities that we have, when there are challenges as we go through the seasons of life and life begins to change, when we face difficulties in our life, maybe things that we didn't expect were going to happen. If we want our second half of our life to be the best that it could be, then we need to manage our thinking, our mind, our emotions. And this all, I think, revolves around this concept of mental toughness. This is something that I've been working on for a number of years, and especially has become more in focus over the last couple months. When I think of mental toughness, the image that comes in my mind of a Marine, here is a man or woman who has been trained to be mentally tough and to face the difficulties, to face the challenges of war. They put themselves in harm's way, and the mental toughness that they face, as well as for firefighters and police, is that they have the ability to set aside their emotions. They have the ability to set aside their fears and their concerns and the danger at the time, because they know that there are things they need to accomplish, and they're able to accomplish them because they have their mental faculties in place. And boy, I think this is so needed today. This is so needed in my life, that in the midst of all the opportunities that I have, that I am laser focused, that I am able to put aside those troubles and the turmoil that could be captivating my mind, so that I am able to accomplish everything that I need to do. I read a book some years ago that was a great encouragement to me on this topic. The name of the book is 13 Things That Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. This book was very encouraging to me as I thought about my mental strength, the areas that I focus on in my life, and the ability that I have to move past the pressures and the stresses of the moment and maintain my mental equilibrium to be able to press forward in my life. I encourage you to stay to the end of this video, because I'm going to give you a resource in order to further develop this idea of mental toughness. Well, let me give you the 6 steps in order to become more mentally tough. I think the first thing that we need to do in order to become mentally tough is to embrace adversity. We have a tendency of wanting and expecting life to be easy and everything to work out with any conflict, without any difficulty, without any disappointment, without any challenge. And when we set ourselves up for that mentally, for everything to be sunshine and roses, when something difficult hits, it can take the wind out of our sails. While I have an optimistic view of life, I also have a realistic view that there is going to be adversity, that there is going to be disagreement, that there is going to be challenges, and there are going to be hardships. I prepare for that mentally so that when that adversity comes, it doesn't throw me off kilter. You need to be in a place where you embrace adversity, that you know that it's going to happen, that there's going to be difficulties in your day, and you're not shocked by them when they happen. The second thing you could do to develop a mental toughness is when those difficulties come, that you don't fold up like an Arabian tent, but you begin to ask yourself the question, what can I learn from this adversity? What can I learn from this difficulty? How can I count this a joy when I go through adversity? That really tends to change my whole perspective on adversity, rather than me licking my wounds and moaning and complaining about what I'm going through. I turn the page and I begin to think about the way that my character will be changed through the adversity. The things that I will learn in my heart and my life that will allow me to be stronger and to face more and more of the difficulties of life. We need to see the learning that we can enjoy during the hardships of life. I liken it to lifting weights. One of the things that I really love about lifting weights is that you know going into the workout that your muscles and your will are going to be tested to press forward and press on even though it's difficult. And you realize that lifting weights, that the process of that difficulty is good because it makes you physically stronger. And I think the same thing is true in our life, that when we face those emotional weights, those difficulties in our life, we need to have that same perspective that where we are working out mentally and we are making ourselves stronger in the way that we react to situation, in the perspective that we keep, and the way that we continue to press forward in perseverance. The third step to becoming more mentally tough is to recognize those things that we don't have control over. This is one of the lessons that Amy Morin wrote about in her book. We can really have the wind taken of our sails. We can really be discouraged when we begin to focus on those areas in our life that we have no control over. We can go through the mental gyrations and exercises of trying to fix something that we have no ability to fix. And when we do that, that makes us mentally weak. It distracts us from those things that we have control over, that we can focus on, that we can work on. We have to face the challenge in our life that as we go through life, that there are many things that we don't have control over, and begin to recognize those things. I heard one person say today that when you're facing something mentally challenging, that you begin to write down all the things that you think should happen to fix that situation. And then you go back over the list and you cross out all those activities that you cannot do, that you have no control over. To me, that's a great exercise in becoming mentally tough, because it forces me to focus not on what I don't have control over, but what I do have control over. The fourth practice that you can do to become mentally tough is to attack the hard things first. This has been a great experience for me in my life, in my work. I have developed more of a practice when I get to my work. I think about what are those things that I want to procrastinate on the most? What are those things that I want to delay? And those are the things that I typically do first. It's actually very freeing, because once you get past those difficulties, your day seems a little bit lighter, because now you don't have that burden and the dark cloud of those things that you are putting off for a later time. We develop a mental toughness when we understand that we have to face the difficulties of life, and we face them head on. Whether it's a difficult conversation that you're going to have with somebody, or some challenge that you have in your work. To develop that mental toughness, again, is to exercise those mental muscles and to become stronger and stronger. And part of that is facing the difficulties, those adversities head on, and dealing with them, taking care of them. The fifth area that's a key step in developing mental toughness is your ability to focus. I have to think about this all the time. How good am I at focusing on my work? How long do I have an attention span to really work on a project or something that I need to give my full attention to? We are so inundated with YouTube videos and little clips of things that our attention span is so short these days. And I found myself in a place where I had to develop that muscle of being able to focus on an activity or a work project in order to get it done. I heard recently a really good suggestion, which is that you set a timer for 50 minutes. And during those 50 minutes that you are going to spend the whole time focused on one particular project or one particular task that you need to do. At the end of the 50 minutes, then you can have 10 or 15 minutes of a break. I think that's a wonderful thing to really challenge us to expand our ability to focus on an activity for a long period of time. This again is working out that mental muscle and the ability to focus on one thing. My thoughts flitter all over the place about many number of things, about any number of stressors. And if I have a greater ability to focus my mind on what I need to focus it on, that's going to help me in the long run to be able to be mentally tough and to be mentally strong to push through these things. We get so waylaid by all these thoughts and all these errant ideas in our mind that captivate us and distract us from those things that we should focus on. Well, the sixth thing that I'd suggest to you, the step to be mentally stronger and have more focus, is to realize that God can help you. So many times in my life, I've realized that I was struggling in an area and I was trying to do it on my own. And I turned the corner and realized that, I can call on God, who is a help to those who are in need, that will help me and give me strength in my time of need. I don't have to do this on my own. I don't have to be mentally strong on my own. I'd encourage you, turn to God and begin to pray and ask Him to help you to be mentally strong, and He will help you to do that. Well, thank you for being part of the discussion. I would love to see your comments in the section below. If you have ideas about how to be mentally strong, maybe areas that you've struggled in it that we can discuss discuss together. There's a resource that I mentioned before. We have a podcast entitled Married by Design that's on Spotify. It's on iTunes podcast. And I'm going to leave a link in the description below that will lead you to a couple of messages that we had entitled Your Thinking Matters that delve more deeply into the idea of how to control our mind and how significant it is what we focus on in our mental strength. I hope that you're encouraged about this concept of being mentally tough. It is so important for us in our second part of life to have our mental faculties to be able to focus in areas of our life, to not allow our minds to run away and run amok. That can be a great discouragement and a disturbance to us, because if we want to live our best life in the second part of our life, we need to have that mental strength.